How deep would you bury a secret if you believed the whole world was trying to find it? And what happens when the mountain you trust starts shaking above your head? Before we go inside that mountain, tap like for the hidden engineering, subscribe for more calm breakdowns of dangerous history, and share this video with a friend who always asks what really happened. At 2:10 in the morning, according to accounts released after the strike, men working beneath the ridge in northern Iran heard alarms that were never meant to be background noise. They were not listening to another drill. They were listening to rock being beaten from above. Somewhere over the mountain, aircraft they could not see had released weapons built for one purpose, to turn depth into a trap. For years, the people who designed that underground complex believed granite was a shield. They believed enough stone, enough concrete, and enough distance from the surface could make a nuclear site untouchable. The United States came to a different conclusion. Granite slow a bomb down. It could break weaker weapons apart, but if you studied the mountain long enough and built a weapon around its weakest points, the rock could become part of the attack. That is the real story here. It is not only a story about a giant bomb. It is a story about patience. It is about a country hiding machines inside a mountain. Another country spent more than a decade asking one cold question: where is the weak spot? Every tunnel needs air. Every underground factory needs power. Every deep room needs a way for people, heat, cables, and machines to move in and out. A mountain can cover a facility, but it cannot make it disappear. That small truth shaped one of the most intense target studies of the modern age. It began years before any pilot knew he might one day fly toward Iran with the heaviest conventional bomb America had ever placed on an aircraft. To understand why Fordow mattered, you have to understand the fear that produced it. Iran's nuclear program did not start as a hidden military race. In the 1950s, under the Shah, it grew with help from the United States as part of the old dream. The dream was that nuclear energy could make nations modern, rich, and respected. Then came the 1979 revolution, war with Iraq, isolation, and sanctions. There was a deep belief inside Iran's leadership that the outside world wanted to keep the country weak. By the 1990s and early 2000s, inspectors and intelligence agencies were already asking hard questions about sites like Natanz. This was where rows of centrifuges could enrich uranium. Iran said its program was peaceful. Its enemies feared it was building the option to make a bomb. Then satellites noticed something strange near the holy city of Qom. Roads appeared where roads did not matter. Earth was moved in patterns that looked less like normal construction. It looked more like a careful wound opened in the side of a ridge. By 2009, the secret could not stay secret. The United States, Britain, and France announced that Iran had been building an enrichment plant inside a mountain. This was Fordow. Unlike Natanz, it was not laid out in the open desert where a jet or missile could strike it directly. It was tucked under rock, protected by depth, and protected by air defenses. It was protected by the assumption that no conventional weapon could reach it. Fordow was small compared with some industrial sites, but its meaning was huge. You do not bury delicate enrichment equipment under hundreds of feet of stone because it is convenient. You do it because you expect trouble. Centrifuges are not like piles of steel pipes. They are precision machines spinning at extreme speeds, balanced so carefully that even tiny changes can ruin them. A power surge, a vibration, a pressure wave, or a small shift in the floor can turn a hall of working machines into scrap. So Iran's choice was clear. If the machines could not be made strong, the mountain around them had to be strong. Fordow was not just a facility, it was an answer to air power. For a short time, that answer worked. America's older bunker busters had earned a fearsome reputation in earlier wars, but they were built for buried command posts and hardened shelters, not for a nuclear workshop hidden deep in granite. The GBU-28, famous for punching into hardened targets, weighed about 5,000 pounds. Against Fordow, that not enough. The problem was not simply making a louder explosion. If a bomb breaks on impact, it becomes a surface blast. If it explodes too early, it wastes its force in the wrong place. If it drifts away from the target path, it may leave the most important rooms untouched. The challenge was to make a weapon that could survive the journey underground before it tried to destroy anything. That need produced the GBU-57, better known as the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. The name sounds almost crude, but the weapon is not crude at all. It is more than 20 feet long. It weighs around 30,000 pounds. Its thick steel body is designed to hit earth and rock at tremendous speed. It must stay in one piece, keep moving, and wait for the right moment. Inside is a large explosive charge, but the smartest part is not the explosive. It is the fuse, the guidance, and the modeling. The bomb has to know, in a sense, where it is. It must feel the difference between impact and penetration. It must recognize empty space, resistance, and depth. Then it must explode when the blast can do the most damage. That is why the weapon was only half of the solution. The other half was knowledge. Analysts studied Fordow from the outside for years. They watched roads and tunnel mouths. They watched cooling systems, power lines, and the piles of rock removed during construction. They looked for the shape of the underground rooms by reading tiny clues on the surface. A new building here, a vent there, a change in the slope after a new tunnel was cut. This kind of work is slow and almost invisible. It does not look dramatic. Nobody makes a movie about people comparing satellite images for 15 years. But that quiet work can decide whether a billion-dollar mission hits a wall or strikes the one path the designers forgot. Fordow's most important weak points were not giant gates. They were life support openings, ventilation shafts. Every deep site needs them. Without airflow, heat builds, workers suffer, and machines fail. The irony is sharp. The same openings that allow a mountain bunker to breathe can also help an enemy attack it. Iranian engineers understood this, especially once war seemed near. In the days before the reported American strike, satellite images showed activity around the complex. Trucks moved, entrances were busy, protective caps appeared over shafts. To the outside world, it looked like Iran was trying to protect the last soft spots in the mountain. But if American planners had spent years measuring those spots, then last-minute concrete was not a surprise. It was just another layer in a plan already written. The delivery problem was just as hard. The massive ordnance penetrator is too heavy for normal aircraft. Only the B-2 Spirit, the Batwing stealth bomber built during the Cold War, can carry it in combat. It must keep the bomb inside its body because external weapons would ruin stealth. Each B-2 can carry 2 MOPs. There are only a small number of B-2s in the world. Every hour of flight demands tankers, maintenance crews, route planning, and weather checks. Rescue plans and electronic support are also essential. A mission from the United States to Iran is complex. It is not one plane taking off like a movie hero. It is a moving machine spread across continents. Fuel is waiting in the sky, and pilots are flying through a night that has been rehearsed for years. When reports later described Operation Midnight Hammer, the most impressive part was not only the explosion, it was the choreography. Stealth bombers, tanker aircraft, fighters clearing space. Submarines were positioned to fire cruise missiles. Decoys moved in the opposite direction. Public attention was pulled toward one flight path while the real force moved quietly along another. The goal was simple to say and difficult to do. Strike Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan within a short window. Hit the nuclear infrastructure and leave before Iran could react in a meaningful way. The message was not just that America had a weapon. The message was that America had built the system to use it. That difference matters. A bomb sitting in storage is a threat. A bomb connected to stealth, intelligence, refueling, timing, and political will becomes a decision. For more than a decade, Fordow forced that decision onto the table without anyone wanting to touch it. Diplomats tried agreements. Sanctions squeezed around inspectors, counted machines and seals. Yet the shadow of the mountain stayed in every conversation. Quick pause. If the story is holding you, press like so the algorithm knows you enjoy serious history without noise. Subscribe before the next twist and share it with one person who follows world events. The central tension was never only military, it was also moral and political. If Iran could enrich uranium deep underground with no real fear of attack, its leaders would gain leverage. If the United States struck first, it could ignite a wider war and rally society around the government. It could set a precedent that future presidents might use in other crises. Israel watched with a different fear. Israeli officials believed a nuclear-armed Iran would change the Middle East, but Israel did not have the exact combination of aircraft, bomb, distance, and refueling ability needed for Fordow. So, the hardest target became a question only Washington could answer. By the mid-2020s, the situation had grown more dangerous. The nuclear agreement had slowed parts of the program. However, it also became a political battlefield. The United States withdrew under President Trump in 2018. Iran later reduced its own limits and increased enrichment. Inspectors continued to report concern. Uranium enriched to around 60% is not the same as a finished nuclear weapon, but it is far beyond what a normal power reactor needs, and it shortens the road to weapons-grade material. That is why every new stockpile number felt heavy. It was not just a number. It was time. How much time would the world have if Iran chose to race? Then came the wider clash with Israel. After days of strikes across Iran, reports said many surface defenses and military sites had been hit, But Fordow remained the problem no one else could solve. The site was not invincible because it was large. It was dangerous because it was protected by geology. That is a different kind of shield. Radar can be jammed, missiles can be intercepted, concrete can be cracked, but a mountain is not a system you switch off. It simply sits there, heavy and silent. It dares you to waste your best weapons against its skin. That is why the attack focused on entrances the mountain could not live without. The first weapons reportedly struck caps and surface protections, opening the way. Follow-on bombs were then aimed into the same narrow zones with different settings and planned depths. This was not the old idea of dropping one bomb and hoping the blast was big enough. It was more like forcing a series of steel fists through the same wound. Each one reached a little deeper. Each one timed to make the next effect worse. The target was not only the shaft, it was the hidden volume connected to it. Here is the strange physics. A bunker buster does not need to vaporize every room to ruin a site. Deep underground, blast behaves differently. In open air, pressure spreads outward and fades. Inside rock, the shock travels through stone, concrete, steel, and empty chambers. It finds corners, it hammers walls, it turns floors into waves. If several detonations occur at planned depths, the pulses can overlap and stress the structure. Even if a chamber does not collapse fully, the machines inside may be finished. Centrifuges are built for speed, not punishment. They can be destroyed by vibration or misalignment. Loss of power or contamination can also be fatal. You do not have to melt them. You only have to make them unable to spin. That is why a mountain can betray the people inside it. The deeper the rooms, the more protected they are from ordinary bombs. But if a weapon reaches the right internal path, all that surrounding mass can carry force. Rock that once acted as armor becomes a hammer. Concrete that once gave comfort becomes a surface for pressure. The designers of Fordow were not foolish. They understood modern air power. They understood that Israel had attacked nuclear reactors before. They understood that the United States had spent decades perfecting precision strike. Their mistake, if there was one, was believing the contest would freeze in place. They built against the weapons they knew. Their enemy built against the mountain they made. The first public reports after the strike sounded absolute. Officials spoke of severe damage. Some used words like destruction and obliteration. Satellite images showed holes on ridgelines, disturbed earth, blocked entrances, and signs that the ground above parts of the complex had shifted. To many viewers, the story seemed finished. The mountain had been hit. The bomb had worked. The great hidden site was gone. But real wars rarely end with one clean picture. Battle damage assessment is slow, especially when the target is underground. The enemy controls the site, and some of the most important evidence is buried behind a shattered tunnels. Then came the doubts. Leaked early assessments, described as low confidence, reportedly suggested the strikes may have delayed Iran's program by months rather than years. Other officials pushed back, saying the damage was far more serious. Independent experts warned that both sides had reasons to speak in extremes. Governments like victory to sound complete. Enemies like survival to sound total. The truth usually hides between them. A bomb can collapse tunnels and wreck machines. It cannot erase knowledge from the minds of engineers. It cannot guarantee that every gram of enriched uranium was still inside when the first weapon arrived. And if material was moved before the strike, then the military success becomes only one part of a larger question. This is the uncomfortable truth about nuclear programs. They are not buildings, they are networks. They include mines, conversion plants, enrichment halls, storage locations, scientists, supply chains, computer systems, secret workshops, and political decisions. Destroying one site can matter a lot, especially if that site is unique. But it does not make a nation forget how enrichment works. It does not remove every tool. It may buy time. It may change calculations. It may scare leaders or may convince them to dig even deeper next time. That is why the word setback matters more than the word ending. A setback can be powerful, it can be necessary, but it is not the same as peace. Still, the symbolism of that night was enormous. For decades, strong states have buried command centers, missile sites, and research facilities under mountains. North Korea does it. China studies it. Russia has built entire underground complexes. Iran was part of that tradition. The logic is simple. If the enemy owns the sky, go under the earth. But the Fordow strike, as described, sent a warning to every planner who trusts that logic too much. Depth is not magic. Granite is not a promise. A bunker is only as safe as its least protected connection to the surface. A vent, a cable route, a drainage tunnel, a service road, an access door, a pattern in the dirt. One overlooked detail can become the whole battle. And that is what makes the American answer worse than a normal bunker buster. A normal bunker buster is a weapon. This was a method. It combined patient intelligence, custom engineering, stealth delivery, political timing, and a psychological message. It said, if you build a fortress, we will spend years learning its habits. If you seal one entrance, we will ask what that tells us about the room behind it. If you move deeper, we will not only make a bigger blast, we will make a smarter path. The frightening part is not that the bomb is heavy. The frightening part is that it was designed around a specific idea of human confidence, the belief that someone else will stop looking. That belief appears again and again in military history. Castles were built until cannons changed the rules. Battleships were armored until aircraft changed the rules. Fixed missile silos were hardened until accuracy changed the rules. Every defense creates a race. At first, the wall wins. Then the attacker studies the wall, builds tools, trains crews, and waits for the day the wall becomes a map. Fordow was a modern castle under a mountain. It was built for a world where older bombs could not reach it. But technology did not stop in 2009. Neither did fear. There's also a human side that is easy to miss. Somewhere, engineers designed those underground halls believing they were protecting their country. Somewhere else, American engineers designed a bomb to break that protection. On both sides, people went home, raised families, and worked on equations whose results could shake mountains. The machines may be cold, but the motives are not. Pride, fear, memory, revenge, survival, deterrence, all of it is mixed into the steel. Before we push into the aftermath, do a small thing for the channel. Hit like you're marking a map. Subscribe if you want more stories built on facts, and send this to someone who needs the short version of a very complicated world. The aftermath also raised a question that no creator can answer. Did the strike make the world safer, or did it teach Iran to hide better? Supporters argued that waiting would have been more dangerous. They said a hard strike proved that red lines still mattered, and that Fordow could not be allowed to become a permanent shelter for a nuclear breakout. Critics saw a different danger. They warned that using force without a long political plan can turn a temporary delay into a permanent grievance. If government survives the blow, it may rebuild with fewer inspectors, deeper tunnels, and a stronger argument that only a real nuclear weapon can protect it. That is the paradox at the heart of bunker warfare. The more you prove that bunkers can be destroyed, the more some leaders may want weapons that cannot be destroyed. The strike may weaken a program, but the lesson learned by the target may be next time. Disperse it, move it, hide it under cities, hide it under more mountains, or rush before the next attack comes. This does not mean force never works. It means force works best when it is tied to a clear political end. Bombs can open a door. They cannot decide what walks through it afterward. For the United States, the mission was also a demonstration to allies and rivals. To allies, it said America still has reach. They can launch from home, fly across oceans, use stealth, coordinate with partners, and strike targets that others cannot. But there was another message, quieter and perhaps more important. The true advantage was not just metal or explosives. It was the ability to focus a national security system on one problem for years. Universities, laboratories, pilots, spies, satellite operators, engineers, programmers, and commanders all touched the outcome. That is why the mountain was facing more than a bomb. It was facing a civilization's organized attention. For Iran, the lesson was more painful. The strongest part of Fordow became its curse. Because it was so famous, so hardened, and so central to the nuclear dispute, it attracted years of study. Secrecy did not protect it forever. Depth did not keep it off the target list. Instead, the mountain became a fixed point around which American planning could orbit. Every month that passed gave analysts more images, more patterns, more chances to refine their models. A moving target is hard to hit. A buried target is hard to reach. But a buried target that cannot move gives a patient enemy something rare, time to understand it. The public may remember the huge bomb because huge bombs are easy to imagine. A 30,000-pound weapon makes a simple picture, but the real image should be different. Picture a room of analysts staring at satellite photos until a shadow makes sense. Picture engineers testing steel cases against rock. Picture programmers modeling shock waves through underground chambers they have never seen. Picture pilots training to cross half the world without being noticed. Picture decision makers staring at options where every choice carries risk. That is the machine behind the machine. The bomb falls for seconds. The preparation lasts for years. And yet, for all that preparation, uncertainty remains. No outside viewer can know every tunnel that collapsed. No satellite can see every stored cylinder. No official statement from any side should be treated like a perfect window into the ground. This is why serious analysis has told two thoughts at once. The strike may have been a major technical success, proving that the deepest symbols of Iran's nuclear program were not beyond reach, and the strike may still have left enough people, material, and anger for the story to continue. In geopolitics, both can be true. The most dangerous mistake would be turning the story into a cartoon. It is not brave pilots versus evil scientists. It is not innocent engineers versus reckless generals. It is a collision of security fears, ambition, law, memory, and power. Iran lives in a region where enemies have invaded, bombed, and sanctioned it. Its leaders use that history to justify secrecy and defiance. Israel lives with the fear that one nuclear breakthrough could threaten its survival. America carries the burden and arrogance of being the only power with tools large enough to shape the outcome from across an ocean. Each side sees itself as preventing disaster. That is what makes disaster so hard to avoid. So what did Granite actually stop? It stopped easy answers. It stopped smaller weapons. It stopped quick plans. It forced the United States to build a heavier bomb, a smarter fuse, a longer mission, and a deeper intelligence effort. But it did not stop attention. It did not stop engineers. It did not stop the slow math of a country determined to prove that no fortress is final. That may be the most important military lesson of Fordow. The future of war is not only about firepower, it is about finding the exact place where confidence becomes weakness. But the political lesson is darker. If every bunker can eventually be reached, then every state that feels hunted may search for another kind of protection. It may scatter its program. It may hide among civilians. It may race faster. Or it may finally negotiate. Not because trust has grown, but because the price of hiding has become too high. None of these paths is simple. A bomb can change a calculation, but it cannot create trust by itself. Trust comes from verification, pressure, restraint, and time. Those things are less dramatic than a stealth bomber, but they decide whether the next mountain has to be attacked at all. Think again about the people underground in those first minutes. They may not have known the name of the weapon above them. They may not have known that analysts had studied their ventilation shafts for years, or that pilots had crossed oceans in silence, or that supercomputers had modeled the shock. They only knew the impossible was no longer impossible. That feeling is the true end of the Granite myth. A nation can pour concrete, cut tunnels, and stack mountains over its secrets. But once an adversary believes the secret matters enough, the hiding place becomes a challenge, not a shield. That is why Fordow will be remembered beyond the craters. It showed that the contest between hiding and finding is not over, but it has changed. The mountain still matters. Depth still buys time. Granite still makes attack harder, but harder is not the same as safe. Somewhere another government is already drawing tunnels. Somewhere another analyst is already measuring shadows. And somewhere another engineer is asking how to build the next weapon for the next impossible target. Iran trusted the mountain to end the question. The strike proved the question was getting deeper. Every fortress has a weakness. The future belongs to whoever finds it first.